What happens when an ordinary courier bumps into a childhood friend who's now a CEO? He doesn't just make a delivery, he changes the system. And while Jasmine thought she was untouchable, Marcus is about to turn everything upside down. The morning started like any other for Marcus. He was just another courier, navigating the bustling streets of the city, making his usual rounds. The heavy backpack full of packages hung loosely over his shoulder as he cycled through the streets, the sound of traffic and bustling pedestrians filling the air. His job was simple: pick up and drop off parcels, follow the routine, avoid trouble. But today, something strange happened. He received a delivery to a towering office building in the heart of downtown, a place he'd never set foot in. The order was peculiar, a high-priority package for a CEO, and it required a signature in person. Marcus had never been to such a place before. He hadn't imagined that a routine delivery would lead him into a world so far removed from his own. As he entered the grand lobby, the polished floors reflected the light from expensive chandeliers, and the faint scent of luxury lingered in the air. Security guards in sharp uniforms glanced at him with thinly veiled judgment as he approached the elevator. The package he carried was heavy, but what weighed on his mind was the idea of delivering it to a CEO, someone who sat at the top of the pyramid in a world Marcus could only dream of. He had once been like these people, ambitious and full of hope, but somewhere along the way, the reality of life had caught up with him. A slip-up here and there, bad choices, and now he was just a courier, delivering packages for a living. As the elevator doors opened, Marcus found himself in a sleek, high-rise office. The glass walls looked out over the city, a view only a select few could afford. He walked down a hallway lined with expensive art and past workers in suits who barely looked up from their work. Finally, he reached the CEO's office. It was there, at that moment, that Marcus saw a familiar face. "Marcus?" the voice said, startling him. He looked up. There she was, Jasmine, the girl who had been his childhood friend, the one who used to laugh with him on the playground, the one who had been different from everyone else. And now she was a CEO. The shock hit him like a wave. He could barely comprehend it. Jasmine, the same girl who had struggled alongside him, was now someone the world admired and respected, while he was just a delivery guy. "Jasmine," Marcus stammered, unable to hide the mix of awe and resentment in his voice. She didn't seem to recognize him at first, her face cold and businesslike, but then recognition flickered in her eyes. "You, Marcus?" she said slowly, as if trying to place him. The realization hit him harder than the sudden reunion. This wasn't just a coincidence. She wasn't just some CEO. She was the one everyone had thought was behind everything. Behind the facade of success that was built on the backs of people like him. We've just started this story, but things are about to get even more intense. Stay tuned to see how Marcus deals with a truth he wasn't ready for. Marcus sat across from Jasmine in the sleek, modern office, feeling the weight of her gaze. She was polite, professional, but there was an air of distance between them, as though the years had erased whatever connection they had once shared. She explained her rise to the top in carefully measured tones, as if reciting a script, but to Marcus, her words felt hollow. Jasmine was part of the system now, a system that had once been the same one they both fought against. It wasn't that she had sold out, but her rise to power had come at a cost. And now, sitting in front of him, the girl he once knew seemed like a stranger. She was no longer the dreamer from their neighborhood. She was the person who had used people like him to get to the top. As the conversation went on, Marcus grew more and more disillusioned. Jasmine wasn't the same person. She had become a part of the very system that kept people like him in their place. She didn't say it outright, but it was clear. She had used her charm, her intelligence, and her access to the right circles to make her way up, leaving people like him behind. But Marcus wasn't just upset with Jasmine. He was angry at the system that had chewed him up and spat him out. The rich and powerful had always seen people like him as expendable. They used them, discarded them, and kept climbing. And now Jasmine had become one of them. "Jasmine," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "You've forgotten where you came from." Her face tightened, but she didn't respond. There was no denying it. She was no longer a victim of the system. She had become the system, and Marcus felt like an outsider, like someone who no longer had a place in the world they once shared. This is building up to something big. What happens next is not just unexpected, it could change everything. Stay tuned to see how Marcus faces a system built to break him. The days after their meeting were a blur for Marcus. He couldn't stop thinking about Jasmine and what she had become. It wasn't jealousy, it was more than that. It was the realization that the world they had both once wanted to escape from had swallowed them whole, but it had chewed her up and spit her out at the top, while he was left to pick up the pieces of his broken dreams. But something inside him snapped. Marcus wasn't going to let it end like this. He had been complacent for too long, accepting the world as it was, but this meeting with Jasmine had shown him something. She wasn't the only one who could play the game. Marcus was determined to change the rules. He went back to his deliveries, but this time, he wasn't just a courier. He began to observe, to learn, to understand how the system worked. The more he watched, the more he saw how everything was interconnected. The people at the top relied on the people at the bottom to keep things running smoothly, and they didn't care about the cost. One day, he returned to the same office building. This time, he wasn't just delivering a package. He had something more important to deliver: the truth. He had a plan, and he was ready to take action. When he entered Jasmine's office again, she didn't recognize him at first. But as he laid out his plan, his vision for a new way forward, her expression changed. He wasn't just a courier anymore. He was someone who could challenge the system, someone who had the power to make a difference. "Jasmine," Marcus said, his voice firm, "it's time for a change. It's time to tear the system down and rebuild it from the ground up." Jasmine looked at him, her eyes wide, as the weight of his words sank in. It wasn't about revenge or bitterness. It was about making things right. Marcus put everyone in their place, and this moment changed everything. The system will never be the same again.